What's everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computer needs. Whether you need a custom computer for gaming, streaming, creative, music, business, whatever it is, they will build the custom PC you need. Get $100 off your entire bill. Use code CPPOD at checkout at darkfusionsystems.com. Link description of the podcast below. Thank you guys. Now time for feature presentation. We're going to go with some heavy grindcore today. We have Scotty and Danny from the band Poolside at the Flamingo coming the podcast with the brand new EP Accabadora, which I do end up messing up the name of multiple times. Coming out on May 22nd, we talk about how the EP was created, how their sound is created, what their sound is now, and how they write music differently from the original MySpace days to now, and the difference between the MySpace days till now. We have a lot of fun with this one, so get ready for some heavy fun. Oh yeah, you guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. On this episode, we're going to get heavy, and I mean really, really, really heavy, because we're going into the world of absolute insanity, which is called grindcore with this band right here. A brand new EP called Accabadora coming out on May 22nd. 4 songs for you that are going to absolutely rip your face off, because in the press release, the band said it's the perfect blend of erratic grindcore and soul-crushing breakdown. So who wouldn't want to listen to this and probably run straight through a wall, screaming their head off like they're Nick Cage in any movie he's ever been in? So please welcome Scotty and Danny from the band Poolside at the Flamingo to the podcast. So gentlemen, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you,
Kevin. Thanks for having us, man.
We're
very happy to be here. Yes.
Thanks for being on.
I love the describing the new EP. That was the best way to definitely describe it.
I had to describe it that way because when I was listening through the singles that are on there right now, that's all I was thinking about was, okay, I want to listen to this already in a live setting, because I love going to concerts. I'm a huge metalcore guy, so I always love being in the pit every minute of every single show.
Oh, hell yeah.
And of course, everyone's favorite is the breakdowns, when everyone goes as hard as possible trying to hit each other. And these songs of this EP so far that I've listened to, it's basically that, but the entire time. So I feel like I'm going to be on the edge of the wall to start out the songs and run in screaming like Nick Cage about to beat down an animatronic characters in Willy's Wonderland, just to have a whole bunch of fun. But that's just the whole entire thing, and that's the whole entire energy. So yeah, I had to describe it like that.
Oh, hell yeah, man. We get our little wall of death going on. You know, we got the circle pits. We got, just the hardcore dancing, whatever you want to do,
whatever you're into.
Whatever you're into,
you can do it in our pit.
Yes.
We're all inclusive.
We're an all-inclusive pit, whether you just want to be on the wall, you want to smash into somebody, you want a hardcore dance, or if you just want to, sit poolside, it's the perfect band for you to do it to.
Go.
So
there
boom.
You go.
If you want to, if you have a hard on, whatever, it's up to you.
I mean, if you have a hard on and you go into a pit, I got to respect that. But then if, you got a little thing poking out there, someone might just go and whack it for the hell of it.
Exactly.
And you might end up in the ER for a dislocated cock. I mean, that might not be the best thing, but.
And if you fall on it, that would not be good. Yeah.
Oh!
No.
I mean, unless it's long enough and you just fall over and it's like a tripod and you just kind of float there.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah. One cock push-up.
That'd be good.
One cock push-up.
Yeah, man, we're all about those breakdowns and blast beats, as we say everywhere. So, and got to get a good mix of them both, and we keep it a little bit old school too. With we came up in the MySpace days, and we still show some love for that, for sure.
We do it for a long time.
I'll say, so I got to ask you this, because MySpace days, I mean, there's a lot of people that are longing for those days once again, where things were simpler. We didn't have to go through a pandemic or a bunch of different economic turmoil. We just had to enjoy MySpace and worry about if we had kept it in our friends' top 8 or not. So how you guys keeping it more like back to the old school, back to the MySpace days, bringing it back into your music?
We try to keep it unpredictable. I think that is a key takeaway from the MySpace era. When you listen to bands like See You Next Tuesday, Tower of Rome back then, Daughters, I mean, it's very, I'd say, unpredictable. It's very experimental, but we've tried to sort of blend it with like the new age, right? Things are getting a little more technical these days. Things are getting, I don't know how to say it, like, it also has to be easy to listen to. So a lot of the beats, everything plays together. Everything has a rhyme and rhythm to it. So we like to go off in these little blast beat off time tangents, but then we like to bring it back home with, like you said, these, like, we call them like these soul crushing breakdowns, right? Where there might be nothingness for up to 3 seconds in between each little part. So that's, yeah. And just obviously the name lends itself a little bit to the days of when that was going on. You know, you have I Wrestled a Bear once, you had See You Next Tuesday, you had Super Happy Storytime Land, you had all
Robinson,
these bands.
Yeah.
Robinson, not so much in style, yeah, but with these
Yeah.
ridiculous names that are
Tony
doing
Danza
that.
Tap Dance Extravaganza.
Yeah, some old good friends of ours is Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza. And it's yeah, man. I mean, we just try to keep it light but heavy as shit.
And it was kind of crazy, like back in the day. I'm going to say like from 2005-6 era, when we really kind of had our first CD there. We were touring a lot. It was mainly just like the spastic grindcore with like a little breakdown here and there, but not as much. It was just all over the place. Like I compare it to like Psyopus or like Lie by Mistake or something. But we've now that we've kind of like grown into the new age, we've kept that style that's like the Poolside style. And Danny is our guitarist. He writes all the music and everything, and I sing. I'm the vocalist. I'm the screamer and growler. But we really wanted to keep our style, but then throw in those big breakdowns, which I love too. We all love them, and then go back into it and put the breakdowns back in. We were on like a hiatus for a while, but we really missed it. And we just recently, in the last year, got back into it.
We've had like 2 resurgences.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, we miss it. We see some of our friends like making it big and doing it, and some of other local friends that are like reigniting their bands. And we went to a couple local shows, and like, God, I miss doing this. Like, hey, let's get back together again and start writing some music. And that's why we're here again. That's what brought us back to here.
Yeah.
I'll say I can see what you're talking about when it comes to the back of the MySpace days, back where the music was just really unpredictable and heavy and just erratic at certain points in time. And that's always a fun time too, just because you never know what to expect. You never know where the song is going to take this massive turn. It's kind of like if you give like a 12-year-old kid 2 straight bang energies and just let them run wild and see what happens. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what they're going to run into, but you know it's going to be just absolute manic unpredictability. And listening through the 2 singles you have out on the new EP, it does have a lot of that consistent change and consistent unpredictability, but where it has a little more of the modern flair to it, because like you said, Danny, it's like, in the modern, there's a lot more technicality put into these things.
Yeah.
And people, when it comes to having that attention span and what they want in their music, what they're really getting after, is you can have that craziness and erraticness. I've seen that all over, the metal world right now, where crazy unpredictability is key, but you can't just like jump from one spot to the next and keep jumping without really having some sort of transition there or some sort of consistent flow there. You got to have it so it has this consistent feeling where it can go from one spot to the next. It can be as crazy as you want it to be, but that connection between the two just for some reason has to make sense. I mean, me personally, I like it when that stuff happens, because it just, you can follow along with the song really easily. And even when it comes to the heavy manic craziness and unpredictability of it, I love when things can go flip-flop all over the place, but it has this cohesion to it where it's like, oh, it makes sense to go here because of how they did this one little thing in this one little part for half a second, but it absolutely works. I love it when that happens, and you guys really brought it here, especially bringing in those breakdowns too, to really capture some of that heavier, visceral, but also more controlled chaos energy that the pit has when those breakdowns hit.
Yeah,
totally.
Thanks, man.
Totally.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think that's what has updated the most from that era are literally the breakdowns. It's like before, they weren't as slow. They didn't have to be they had to keep you on your toes. Now when you form and create a breakdown, it's gotta be unique in some way, because everyone's heard all of them before, right? You can only do a breakdown so many different ways. You can only chug on the open strings so many different ways. And so it's like, oh, you got to work in this timing in it, or a hit in this off spot, or it's got to have some cool, like, otherworldly sounds inside of it. So it's definitely, there has to be more thought going into it. And that's what happened with this EP, honestly, is we've put the most thought into this EP than we ever have in any of our previous stuff.
Yeah.
And that also has changed with the way things are written these days. So back in 2005, 2006, when we were writing a ton of music, we just got together to jam at our jam space, and that's where it happened. I might come into practice with some ideas in my head, and I've like formed this idea of half a song, and I'm sitting there sounding like a fucking idiot to our drummer, like, well, no, it's like, duh, 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 duh. You know, you're like mouthing how it's supposed to fucking go, and you're trying to show them. And then
I remember those days.
It might have been a little bit more collaborative back then, because then I would be like, he would take what he could from me and start playing, and we would agree on some things, but he might end up playing something completely different than had formed in my head, you know, and it would just sort of become permanent in the song. And then we would like freestyle a lot back then. We just start playing, and we'd like keep elements of that and put it into a song. And so that's sort of how the flow was back then. And then it would take forever to finalize things like lyrics. Like Scotty would come in and just start screaming to these songs.
I just freestyle lyrics, just wouldn't say anything really.
And then we would have like a tour coming up in 2 weeks, and he'd have no lyrics. So we just go on the tour and play all these new songs, and he'd just be freestyling to them the whole time and
make up random words and stuff. And you know, you're like 18, you're like, I'm partying and what, I can't have time to write lyrics. So, you know, but now I'm like the last few
then you would go to back then recording was like this important thing you did not very often. And so when you go to record, you got to book studio time, and you go in, and it's like, all right, you got to finalize those lyrics now. We got to finalize these things. And a lot of things remained on the fly, because we would write like 15 songs, and we would never record. We'd have like 2 albums before we recorded an EP or something. And it'd be like, fuck, because it was just so expensive back then, and not as accessible. And now it's just very different these days. So like for this EP and for self-titled that we released before this, it's with the technology, it's easy for me by myself to literally sit down at my computer and write the entire fucking song and create the drums for it the way that I feel they should be. And then just like text the song to the rest of the band and be like, here, listen to this. What do you think? You know, collect their feedback. My drummer might be like, you should, I don't know if I play that, like do this. And then, you know, eventually then we can get together. Now we have like click tracks and shit, and we can like practice to that, and we just keep repeating it until everyone gets it, and
I can
then
sit
we
down
can
and actually write the lyrics to them and take my time and listen to the song over and over, press stop, play, getting nice and typed out and meaningful lyrics, not just gibberish, you know. And and then when you have lyrics and you have the click track and everything, the song's so much more tighter. Like it's so like I know exactly what beat I say this and that word on, and what I scream in the breakdown, how much time I can hold my breath. And ultimately, like yeah, we were playing some raw shit back in the day. Like it was crazy all over the place. Like every night it wasn't even the same. It was like it was just different.
It mostly was.
Mostly was.
There's been a trade-off. We just did this shift. So we have some upcoming like tour shows. We're not doing a big tour, but we have some out-of-state shows coming up, and this will be our first time using this full like live setup rig that we have now, where we have like sort of a phantom second guitar player to fill in spots here and there coming out of the cab. That's, you know, ran through the fucking Reaper project on the laptop that, you know, and then we run through the mixer on stage, and full click tracks, full backing tracks, and all that stuff. I mean, this is a lot of bands. This is how they do it, and they've done it for years, and we're just now getting updated to it. But back in the day, it was none of that. It was just all a lot of looks over to the drummer, a lot of like, you toured enough and you played enough shows that it was all just second nature anyways. And although it probably wouldn't be played out to a click correctly, you're all playing correctly with each other, you know? And so it's definitely changed, but I think ultimately it's for the better, because I think, like Scotty was just saying, you'll get a much tighter live show, and it'll sound like exactly like you're hearing on the EP. You know, it's just going to sound exactly the same, except you'll be able to just know what you're listening to.
Well, it's going to give you guys more of a consistent sound, especially in the live setting, if you're able to work with all these different nuances, different tropes that are now more prevalent in today's world than more back in the MySpace days. Because when it comes to the live setting as well, just given how the cost of everything is skyrocketed, touring's gone up, ticket prices have gone up, inflation's running rampant, so people don't have the amount of money to spend on shows as free willy-nilly, and they want to go and see a show that they know they're going to have a good time at, that's going to bring them that positive response that they want to have. And if you guys were going back to the old school style where you never know what kind of band you were going to get that night, where all of a sudden maybe you guys were all on together and it absolutely worked. Maybe something didn't go right and there was this complete disconnect that was happening overall. And if someone was going to get that, unvariability of I don't know what I'm going to get in this overall show with the limited amount of money that they have, they're going to go and spend it somewhere else where they know they're going to get that quality. Now it's you guys have the ability to do it, given the fact that technology has changed from when you guys first started recording, first started doing this, and then your process overall in terms of writing music, how you write lyrics, how you create this stuff has changed based off of that as well. But it, in a sense, gives you a little bit more time to try and flesh things out, really try different things out and see where these things are going to go instead of just kind of going willy-nilly and hoping that inspiration strikes at that initial point and then having to record and try and find time to record it when all of a sudden by the time you record it, the song could have changed completely to something that is like Frankenstein's monster and you don't want to record anymore because you're just like, what have I done to my son?
Yeah, exactly. Nope, scrap it. It's all done. Nope, something else.
And we'd be together writing back in the day, and I'd come in with an idea, we'd flesh it out, and then it would be like the drummer would be like, "Oh, hey, let's just do this next," and then I'd just be like, "All right, fuck it, why not?" And then we just do that, and there's no time to really mull it over, make decisions. We're just like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's do that next." Oh yeah, let's do this next, and so again, this is one of those first. I like this EP a lot because it's like I sat down and was like, really thought about what should come next, what should be played, what we want to put forth, so.
Which we're putting more time into it, but like it kind of was the beauty, like double-edged sword. Like it was cool back then because it was crazy. We were just on the fly. We didn't give a shit, more or less. We just want to go out and have fun and entertain people, which we do today too, but I think it's more psychological now in the way like we think through it, and we don't just put anything out there. Like some of our older stuff, like there was some good stuff, but there was some really not so good stuff from my opinion. And it was still good. It was still like raw good stuff. But like even like we just did this last self-titled album last year, and we're like, but we want to do more. So we just put out this new EP. Just because we and that we're older now too, so we had the money to actually record these and not have to do it in our friend's basement with some kind of shitty recording system he has. So it's nicer to have like a nicer sounding album now too.
I'll say, well, let me ask you guys this, just because, it's given the fact that it's 2024 right now, it's a completely different time frame and a completely different mindset of where you guys are at based on where you've gone through life, where you are in life. Would you rather be making music the way you're making music now at this age, or would you rather be making music like you were back when you guys were like 18, 19 back in the MySpace days?
That's tough, man.
I had so much fun.
Yeah, I think if we could create the music the way we do now, but just have like the scene and stuff that we did back in the day, that would be the perfect combination.
The scene was great back in the day.
I like how I think writing in general is easier now with all the technology, but yeah, I mean, we didn't have kids, we didn't have wives that get mad when we play shows, we didn't have
or if we're gone on touring or whatever.
Yeah, so mainly. It was just free reign back then, man. I mean, not to mention the local scene where we're from. We're out of a little town called Longmont, Colorado, and we used to play in bands in high school, and usually we were always in a band together. And it was just, I don't know if Scotty and I are brothers. We're actually twin brothers. So we don't look alike. We're fraternal twins.
I'm bald. See, he has hair.
But we used to play shows in like high school. Our parents owned a dinner theater that did like musicals and shows and stuff.
They still do.
And they still have it, but we would clear out all the tables and chairs and throw shows in there, bring in a PA, and we would just have these local shows there. And between our high school, middle school friend group, there must have been like 5 bands, And so we would just put on these shows with our friends. And then soon enough, like word got to a couple Denver bands that were older than us. They were like, holy shit, this scene's hopping. Like, we got to come down there and play. And
We packed
We
like
just
300 kids in there, man.
Yeah, we used to just play these packed out shows in this little dinner theater space. And then, of course, as we progressed, we did a lot of touring back then too, and just didn't have any responsibilities or anything. And I would argue that the scene, at a certain level, the scene was much more active back then, just across the nation. So if you were a local, quote unquote, like touring band, you weren't signed, you weren't anything big, but you were local and touring, which is what we were at that time, then we still had a lot of like really awesome packed out shows because a lot of places mirrored sort of the scene that we had in our little town of Longmeadow. You go into like Reardon, fucking, where was that? Idaho or Washington, and you play at the community center with like some other high school local bands, and there'd be like 200 kids there because they're just all supporting the local scene. And same with like you'd play in a freaking strip mall place in Amarillo, and it would be jam packed with all these kids. And none of the bands you were playing with you had ever heard of. Like they're all just local bands from Amarillo, and we would come through and they'd like put us in the middle so that people wouldn't leave if they hadn't heard of us. And it was just, usually we had some really good shows. I feel like nowadays, I don't want to say the scene has died because I think at like a higher level, the shows are all packed still. Like we have some buddies that tour. We're good friends with these guys in Crown Magnetar. They are blowing up right now and they're touring. And a lot of like that level, the shows are just packed still. But if you drop down to and I could be wrong because we haven't been out there a whole lot lately, but if you drop back down to that level where it's like you're not nationally known, but you're touring, so can we play with some local bands in the area? I just don't know how alive that is anymore because even back in the day, it was all booked through MySpace. So literally the way we used to book tours back in the day is everyone's on MySpace. Every local band's on MySpace. And MySpace, you're able to just search any town for metal bands. You could just be like Amarillo, Texas, hardcore, on MySpace. And then it would bring up the profiles of like every fucking local band in Amarillo. And then you just message all of them and be like, hey, we're another band from like Colorado, but we're going to be in town on this date. Can you set up a show? Like, let's play. And that's how all our fucking tours got booked. And then obviously after you did one or two, you had friends and all those like bands.
And you go back to those spots.
Yeah, and you go back to them, play with the same bands. And now Facebook, I don't even think it has that feature. If you can't even find fucking bands in local bands and states and things like that, So
you can't do it. I've tried.
Yeah. You have to have like a booking agent, or you have to just do a lot of legwork yourself and search through groups in that area, search through blah, blah, blah. And you can maybe start contacting venues, but sometimes you don't get a hold of the right person at the venue. It's so much harder these days if you don't have like a legitimate booking agent.
But then once you get past that, to that high shelf there of getting that agent, then it's like, okay, then the shows are even higher.
Yeah, then you're good. Then you're good.
Then you're good to go.
But yeah.
Yeah, but I can see what you mean where it's like when it comes to this writing style, maybe the way you're doing it, why it's nicer to do it the way it is today, given the fact that, with where you're at in life, with the experience that you've had, not only that, but just the technology that's available, the time that's available for it. It's better for you guys to write music in the way you're writing it now versus maybe what you did 18 years ago if you guys were writing stuff today, because you're not able to go off and just do some of the crazy stuff of just winging it and seeing what happens. Yeah. But I do absolutely brought up Danny when it came to the whole entire scene and wishing it was kind of at that same level as it was back then, because I've been really heavily involved with this for almost, I would say, about 5.5 to 6 years now. And when it comes to the bands, like when it comes to those larger venues in rock and metal, when it comes to those bands that more people really know, we're still packing out those rooms. We're still packing out those crowds and it's going nuts. But it's when it comes to those more local acts or maybe the touring acts that are going out there that aren't signed, don't really have a booking agent or still trying to do things themselves. It's people are not as adamant about going to those shows. Yeah. And I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that it's harder to discover some of these bands, and people just aren't as into supporting them as much as they were. And it could also come down to the fact that it's just not as easy to discover them. Like I said, trying to find smaller bands or just trying to find some newer music, if you're trying to search up a band on like Facebook or something, it's incredibly hard unless you know the band's name. The amount of bands I've brought on the podcast, I'll search up their name on Facebook and it takes forever to find the right one.
Yeah, unless they're unique, right? If the name's not unique, there's even if the name's unique, I can type in the name and it's unique and it doesn't come up, and I have to go to the band's website or go to another page that they're on, find what their Facebook link is, go to their link tree, click on it, and then like the Facebook name in the URL, you have to type in that to actually get to go. And I'm like, how can you find this? Also, when it comes to just trying to find bands in different groups or whatnot, it's the band members that are a part of that, which is fantastic, but it's their pages. It's not the band page that's in there. So you don't know that this person's actually in a band. You don't know what this band is. If it was able to have something like that, it works. Instagram, you can find the band pages really easily, but there are no groups of anything like that sort to really search up and find something like that to get to know. And with the way that TikTok is being much more of a prevalent social media platform in this day and age compared to, maybe 10, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago with how powerful it is, it's just videos and it's just doom scrolling all day. There is no connection there. So you might discover music there. You might discover the sound there, but you're not discovering the band there. You're going to go to streaming. You're going to listen to that one song and that's it, because that's all you know about. And if you go to something else on that band's page and you try and listen to another song, and if it doesn't exactly fit what you're expecting from that first song you heard that's viral, you're just going back to what you what you're comfortable with because you don't want to explore anymore.
Like this is them? No. I'm gonna just keep scrolling.
I think a lot of it has to do with the age. It's just the next generation. Like the reason that these that shows are still alive and well is because I think guys, and you're probably younger than we are, but guys our age are like still down to go to shows and shit, but we have like responsibilities and work the next day, and like their back aches so they can't get in the pit and blah blah blah.
Not me.
I think that the younger generation, like for instance, here in our town, I don't think there's any high school kids forming bands anymore, like playing metal and hardcore, or like we were in middle school when we started jamming. And then in high school, it was like us and every band we played with was like 16, 17-year-olds trying to play in a band. And that's when and everyone at that age has like 24 friends, and so it's like, you are playing a show and all of a sudden that's the place to be. Like, who gives a fuck if they're any good or not? Like, all your friends are playing music at some fucking venue. It's like everyone's going to show up. There's going to be 300 kids there, It's
that one venue in town that there's only one show. Everyone's going to be there.
And so you capture that fire when you toured back in the MySpace days, because you just insert yourself into each of those high school band scenes. But nowadays, like I said, we're pretty connected to the scene in Denver. There's a lot of bands. There's tons of local bands in the Denver area that are like our age, right? That are like mid to late 20s to like mid to late 30s. And there's plenty of people in bands like that. But again, a lot of them have like work and blah, blah, blah. And so that not everyone's going to swarm to every show. But I just don't see anything anymore where there's like 17-year-olds doing in bands anymore,
Yeah, I was going to say, I really don't see that either, because here, the local scene where I'm at in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it's mostly like the anywhere in your 20s, like early to late 20s. That's where a lot of the smaller local bands that are really trying to get that community going once again are really honed in on, because probably one of the bigger bands that's in the local area right now, it's someone where like I end up actually knowing the lead singer somehow, because he went to high school with a bunch of my friends at a different high school and was a year younger than I was. But I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But again, I never even knew that he was in a band until I just randomly saw him perform one day with his band opening for Alpha Wolf. And I was just like, now, how the hell does that happen? Still don't know, but it was fucking cool. However, I get what you're totally saying, Danny, because if I think about it as well, even when I was in high school, because this would have been about early 2010s, because I'm 29 years old right now. So early like 2010s, no one was really, if there was people that were in a band, you never knew about it. And now I talk to my little cousin who's a senior in high school right now, I don't think he knows that anybody is actually trying to pursue music in his community or in his area. And he lives in the Dallas area. But the other thing is it's just not what they're interested in to pursue. But I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that it's not like, because if they're not interested, no one's driving to it. Like it's not the cool thing to drive to. It's everyone wants to go to what the big thing is, where all the attention is. And back with the MySpace days, you performed a show. It was the cool place to be. That's where all the attention was. So people went there. So it's not necessarily trying to be like, oh, how can we get this old thing back? But it's how can we get the attention back on this stuff like it was? And that's a whole cultural movement that has to happen in order to make something like that happen. You need another thing like MySpace was, with its searchable feature, to find something like that in order to make it the cool thing to go to, in order to make it the interesting thing that's going on that day. So kids are begging their parents on a school night at 16 years old to go and see a local hardcore show. And if they go to school the next day with a black eye and a busted lip, they take that as a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yes, dude, at the concert last night, man. Look,
I think it could be a little, and I'll grant it might be a little more intimidating these days to get to as a band starting out at that age, as far as like, are we good? Like, can we even play? Because like we talked about before, things have progressed so much in this genre of music that it's like, it's a little bit harder to attain. I think back in MySpace days, like deathcore was pretty new. Grindcore was like pretty new, except for those 80s awesome like Napalm Death and things like that. But like this newer age of grindcore, and then you could sort of just like go nuts and spit shit out, and it would be pretty new and decent, right? Because I know now, because I go listen to some of that shit back in the day, and it just sounds like garbage now. And so I do think there's a higher bar.
Still like the oldies, though.
There's a little bit of a higher bar these days for kids to believe that they sound good when they're listening to these other bands that are, massively putting out music and are professionals at this, So
yeah. God, I just remember printing flyers at the local print shop and putting them on every car.
We'd stand in the high school hallway. We'd stand in the high school hallway, and no kid would get by without getting a flyer. It's like show this weekend. You
would hit up all the high schools within like the school district around us, and it would like you don't see that anymore ever either. But anyways, now we're both 38 and getting back into it, and it's been fun. You see people who are in and out of it that are still in the scene, that still show up. That like we have some fans that showed up back in the 2006 era that came and saw us the more recent show that we just did, and so we have a little tour coming up too. So it's gonna be fun getting back out there and
Yeah, I saw that little tour, and I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting. Is it coming anywhere near?" Nope, not anywhere near me.
No, we're heading south.
We played Wisconsin one time. Actually, when I wasn't there, you guys played in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, okay.
You played in Madison. That's
Madison.
right.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long time.
Yeah, we need to get at the East Coast because, I guess like the Mid East even, and because those once you get that way, you can hit up so many more places. It's just like getting out there.
We're having to be really picky and choosy only because of our family life now on what we can do. So yeah, this tour coming up is like, we booked it ourselves. It's with a lot of the stops are places we've been and with friends that we know, and it'll be good to just get back in those markets. And it's only like 4 or 5 days, so our families won't kill us, and we miss our kids too. And so yeah, I don't know that we will go out on our own a lot, booking our own shit in like tiny venues, go out of our way to be doing that at length, 3 to 6 week tours. But we probably wouldn't say no if we were opening for like larger acts on a tour. We'd probably make that work, or to string the family along in an RV, or fly them out to stops here and there.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I would love to see you guys do some, like, especially with the style of music that you work with, especially with more of the grindcore style, just come around like the Midwest area, because this is where we absolutely love shit like this. Like, Milwaukee. Oh, you want to go to the next city? Oh, just drive an hour and a half south, and you're in the third largest metropolitan area in the United States with Chicago. And then you can just let's go to Indy, let's go to Detroit, let's go to Cleveland, let's go to Pittsburgh. Boom, that's 6 cities right there, all within from Milwaukee to Cleveland, that's the furthest I've driven. That's like 6 hours. If
See,
I'll say 6 hours if I'm driving, 7 hours if someone else is driving.
Yeah.
See, that's great, man. That is so great. It's like when we did that weekender last time. Our first stop, we did New Mexico. That's like 9 hours, and then or 6-7 hours, and then like we got to go to Texas.
They're all like 8 hours.
That's gonna be 13 hours. It's like, oh my god.
So that's the problem. That's the problem with being from Colorado. Is like everything is 8 hours away, and then everything is another 8 hours past that, and then you start getting into like some close locations. So yeah, it'd be great. We've gone out that way a little bit. A few years ago, we played like Full Terror Assault, which is in Southern Illinois, and so you hit like maybe Arkansas and Illinois. You don't really get those short drives, so you get a little bit past that, a little bit north of that, or wherever you can get around there. Which is. It'd be fun if we did an East Coast thing.
Missouri we did, and we did Wichita, and but that was once we do get past that point, past that initial long drive, then we can really hit up a lot of spots, which would be nice to get down. So we actually had a lot of requests on the page recently. When are you coming down? Whatever. When are we coming down to New Jersey? When are you coming down here? I'm like,
I think Pittsburgh would be a good stop. Chicago would be a good one. We have friends in Chicago too.
Chicago's always like a must go to stop if you're a rock or metal band of any kind. Yeah. Just because there's so many different venues you can go to. There's so many different people that are into this stuff. And every time I've gone to a show down there, no matter how big or small it is, it's usually packed out the entire time.
Yeah. See, that's so great. Yeah, they have a huge scene down there. Gosh,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then that's why it's like, 'cause I've had people ask me like, oh, would you ever move from Milwaukee? I'm like, for the music stuff, absolutely not. If I'm here, every show is coming within at the most 2 hours from me. Because if you're not coming here, you're most likely going to Chicago. And if your show's on a Tuesday night, I can get there, go home, get up, and still somehow manage to make it to work the next day without having to take a day off. Like, that's what I love about this shit.
How far of a drive is Chicago from you?
90 miles. So about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Damn, that's freaking crazy. So close.
Yeah.
No, we should drive up to. We have a friend that's from Wisconsin that he's like, you should come out there. Come out here. Well, he's here now, but he's always wanting us to come out there and see his family and stuff. I'm like, yeah, maybe we will.
Go up there, see his family, and then do like a 5-6 show run.
That'd be easy.
And just have some fun with that. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the family, the wife and the kids, they get to hang out in good old Wisconsin. You guys just go rip through the Midwest for a couple of
exactly.
shows.
Yeah,
leaving kids with the black eyes and the busted lips, just going, wow, this was awesome.
Poolside at the Flamingos, the pools and the Flamingos. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
The pools and the Flamingos, I'm in.
Yeah. No, we're excited to get out there and play some shows, man. We've had a few in the last year, but only locally in Denver. We'll play Denver once every, it's been a while now. It's been since October, but yeah, we haven't ventured out in quite a while, so it'll be a good time.
We haven't played any of these songs live yet. The songs on our
the EP. This will be the first time
we're itching.
So you mentioned. We released one today, so there's 3 songs out now.
Oh, there's 3. I literally missed one because I was dealing with work all day and I missed one. I'm gonna play my job on this one for this.
Well, it was just today, so
it literally came out today, just this morning. Yeah, it literally came out this morning, and then the 4th song to top it off will be out on May 22nd. And so, just a 4-song EP. We're actually playing all these shows before not all of them, but 4 of them before the 4th song drops. So those locations will get to hear the song early, and we'll have physical copies with us on the road. So they could pick up the EP early if they want. It won't be for sale online until the 22nd on our website. But then we have a couple shows once we get back in Colorado, one across the state in Grand Junction and one in Denver. So that as like EP release shows.
Okay.
So that'll be nice. Yeah.
We'll have a couple oldies, possibly if there's any kind of like extended playing time or encores or anything, but we'll see.
That's the tough part about getting back into it and writing new music, especially the new 4 songs are our favorites of ours. Like I think it's the best stuff we've ever written, but we have a lot of old school fans that might want to hear shit from like 2006. And so I don't know. We don't really have them in the set list now, but we might throw a couple, have a couple at the ready just in case. You never know.
And and those ones are like the 48-second songs that are just crazy and they end so quickly. And like, well, we could maybe put 3 or 4 of those in there. They don't take too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can string them all in together as like just consistent back and forth medley, and it's like, well, how much time is this gonna take on the set list for a normal band? Like like a song and a half maybe at the most. But it's like taking a look again back at the songs. I'm really curious to see how people are gonna take to these live, because for me, like when it came to just wanting to go absolutely, Nick Cage, Willy's Wonderland crazy in the band. Hell on Earth was definitely the one for me, because it kind of had a little more of that modern feel to where it had the manicness to it. It had the craziness, all the different twists and turns, but it had more of the cohesion between itself. When you listen to the title track, Accabadora, it had a little bit less of that cohesion there. So it had a little more of that more classic, what you guys have done, Poolside At the Flamingo style. But it still had me wondering what's going to happen when people see this and this live. What's going to happen when this is played live? Because it's just every moment, it's for 3 minutes. You went through every hard-hitting moshing moment you will ever see in a concert, and there's still more yet to come. Yeah. Like, it's like you went through a full entire show of hard-hitting craziness in 3 minutes. If you open with that song, you're getting people to pitch just like, okay, that's enough for me for one show. That was just the first song. What in the actual hell are you talking about, man?
Yeah,
I'm really excited to see what the reaction will be. We actually are opening with Accabadora on the tour, and so and we're closing with Hell on Earth as of right now. So just because it just has that super powerful breakdown at the end, and I like to end on a heavy note there, But yeah, you're right. We try to. I feel like we're a little bit unique in that we try to make, not every song doesn't sound in the structure and everything isn't exactly like the song before it, right? So a lot of bands, and it's not a bad thing, like some of my favorite bands sort of have similar song structures for each song, and if you listen too long, they start to blend into each other, and that's fine. I still love those bands and those parts, but I like to think that each of our songs, for the most part, there might be a couple that end up I don't want to say interchangeable, but fall into that rut. But I think they all bring something unique to the table. Like you were saying, Accabadora is it's very erratic. It's very unpredictable, and it was that way on purpose. And then when we wrote Hell on Earth, there's a little bit more cohesiveness to it. It's a little more modern. We just released one today called Seething. It's a little more in the middle of those two, and it's got some like more slam to it, so a little bit more of just like some heavy old school stuff. And then the last one that we'll release on the 22nd leans a little back toward Accabadora a little bit. And so I think people like it a lot. Yeah.
We just want to throw people a wrench when we're playing, and like you were saying, you get those, which some of my favorite bands. You hear like 4 songs, like, oh, those all were awesome and breakdowns, but they all almost like sound like almost similar.
One big song or something.
They're all like one big song, It's like the song to brand, where it's like we play Accabadora and be like, what? Do I mosh here? Do I do a hardcore dance? And then like, oh, here, I recognize that. Okay, here. And then then we bring them like Hell on Earth, where they get a little crazy first and they don't know what to do, and then they get the breakdown. Oh, I know this, and then they bring in Seething, and it's something different. So it's like it breaks up, just fucks with people. You're like, what the fuck is going on right now? But like we have, that's why we mixed everything in there. That's I think that's like what our style is, and of course we do every song of these 4 songs has great breakdowns in it. Especially Hell on Earth, but I think they all have really good low growls and highs, and chunky guitar riffs, chug stuff, and then some technical stuff too, with a lot of blast beats. But then we just cater to like almost everyone, like everyone's type of music, and it's not they don't all sound the same. So there's similarities with some stuff, but it's definitely.
We'll get even a little more
entertaining.
With longer form. We'll get even a little more experimental. If you were to listen to our release right before this, self-titled from last year, it's a 7-song EP, and you just had more songs to work with. They're not as good as these new ones. We didn't put as much thought into them, but there'll be some more variants. Like you'll have the spastic stuff. But we usually always have a breakdown in a song or two. But when we had 7 songs to work with, there is one song on there that's like 55 seconds long, and there's no breakdown, and it's just straight up blast beats like the whole time. So we got to do that. And then there's like another song that starts out more slow and almost has like a little, I don't want to say melodic, but almost a little bit of melodicness to it. There's no singing or anything, but it just, and it drags on for a little bit, and it's a little bit of a different style. If you go back to our very first album ever, first like official album ever, it's a full 14, 15 songs, and we were literally trying to fill time on that. And so there's one song in the middle that acts almost like an intermission that's like 4 minutes long, and there's no blasting in it, and it's just all these like groove after groove after groove, so the longer we get to experiment a little. But since we knew we were just doing a 4-song EP, it was like, no, we just sort of got to bring the A game to every song, and not make it too different, or like, I don't want to say we ever write a throwaway song, but if we were doing like a full-length album, we might be like, you know what, let's just write like a 52-second grind song real quick just for fun. Like, let's just have it there in the set, where we wouldn't do that if we were limited to like 4 songs,
Yeah. And we've always added some samples here and there too. We like that little ambiance too. I mean, obviously the first one, This Will End Badly, 2006 era, we did a lot to fill time, but we kind of kept that true. And the ones we've done before, I guess the self-titled really didn't have much.
Nah, that one was sort of rushed together and
yeah,
released. We didn't really add any samples to it, and those songs were written pretty fast, but they still came out pretty good, I think.
You'll hear some the new EP. Yeah, I think they came out great. Yeah. The newer EP has some horror-esque stuff in it, and of course the Sound Below did too. But like we were talking before the podcast, we're big movie fans, and especially horror, and so we kind of sometimes channel that, even when I'm writing lyrics and stuff too. We channel some of the horror movies and horror aspect to it, and bring it out that way, make it a little eerie too, and fun, of course.
You got to make it eerie. You got to make it a little bit more fun too, because even with the end of Hell on Earth too, it's like just a little bit of that ending to it when it's definitely not heavy at the end. You just had a little something in there. My thought process, I'm like, is this like the end of the EP? But is this the end of The Shining, where you get to the picture of Jack Nicholson at the 4th of July party in 1921, where it's like, is this real? Is this not real? But all at the same time, is it in your mind? Is it actual reality? It was like a great ending to the whole entire EP just from that song overall, because it's like heavy. You're going to get the manicness there. You're going to get the craziness. You're going to get the differentiation, the twists and turns between different parts. But at the end of it, it's just like, was this all in my head, or was this actually real? Like, I really don't know.
So I think not on purpose. We couldn't use the exact song at the end of The Shining because we already used it twice. So yeah, and that's exactly.
Love it so much.
You hit the nail on the head. So at the end of a couple albums ago, we did one called. We did one called The Sound Below, and The Sound Below, I believe the album ends with the exact song, that one you're talking about, from The Shining, when it's zooming in on Jack at the picture of him, and that is. So we already used that, and it's got some like weird echoiness over it. And that's how Sound Below ended. And sort of, now that you mention it, like, I don't think it was totally on purpose, but I literally knew we had used that. I was like, well, we can't use that again, but what's some, like, I typed in Shining music, era music, and found that song that is at the end of a Hell on Earth, and slipped that in there with some sound effects over it. And that's how this EP ends. So we have really ended 2 albums with that same style of music to give off that vibe. And
keep it accurate. Keep it accurate. Yeah.
When we got that back, I just love how it came out. I love how that part came out. And this might not be apparent when you listen to it, but Accabadora ends with like a wind sound. Mm-hmm. That wind sound is ambient noise from the movie Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. So that's taken from that, and a little bit of effect put on it. Then I don't even listen to it yet, but at the end of Seething, there are some sounds that build up into when you hear the full EP will be Into Hell on Earth. And those are ambient sounds from The Shining. Then, of course, we have the end of the Hell on Earth, which is like Shining-esque, it's sort of like that. So we definitely try to slip a lot of horror into what we do. We sort of missed the boat on Self-Titled, the last release before this, because we sort of rushed that together. But if you listen to any release before that, Sound Below is full of samples. Our original, this one, Badly, is just chock full of samples. I mean, just look at the song names on it. It's like all of it comes from American Psycho and all these other movies, so it's pretty cool.
American Psycho in there, with some SNL in there, we have some comedy movies even. Obviously we have the one from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the Johnny Depp saying Poolside at the Flamingo.
Sort of where the name comes from. So yeah. And live, we have a lot of samples that we use live too, that if you ever come see us live, you'll hear in our set too.
Also, the next song coming out after this EP is I Have to Return Some Videotapes.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's it. That's the name of our song.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
It's an oldie but a goodie. And it throws back to the old style, just like, the wacky names on songs, like maybe the jet ski investment wasn't such a good idea, stuff like that. But I feel like, especially if for other listeners going through this EP, it's going to be fun, especially if you're a horror movie fan, to see where some of those samples come in and see if you can pick up on every little sample that's in there and see where it all comes through. And then go back to the rest of your discography and see where those samples come through, because it's like an Easter egg hunt. Let's go hunting. And, well, we're going to have to come after you guys, because you're going to have to put on some bunny ears or something, because, well, Easter bunny time.
Sure. For sure. Yeah, man, it's a good time. That's part of, I feel like that's part of the MySpace days too. Samples were used a lot more heavily back in the day. And I understand why they probably aren't, and why we have not use them as much, is because there could be like copyright issues and things like that, if you use too many of them, or maybe use them for too long. But there's still some bands keeping it alive out there. A lot of slam bands, Peeling Flesh, and some of these other bands that heavily use samples still, that I always love to listen to. It just brings you back.
Because I recently interviewed a band called Belmont from Chicago, and on their new album, one of the songs, they literally use a sample from SpongeBob with Mr. Krabs saying, "Yes, hello, I was wondering if you could play that song again." And it leads into a breakdown. I was just like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I need more SpongeBob samples.
Yeah,
I love that when there's like a pause, there's talking, and or whatever, a sample, and then all of a sudden it just goes straight to the breakdown. You're like, it just hits even harder. It's like, fuck yeah. If you keep that in the live set, integrate that it just makes, because then you just hear it like as if you're listening to the CD.
Yeah.
No, it's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a beautiful thing that people are going to listen to this EP because we tell them to right now. So, everybody listening, make sure you go listen to the brand new EP from Poolside at the Flamingo. Accabadora, I think I said that right.
Yeah, Accabadora,
whatever. Yeah.
Feel free to roast me as much as possible with that. But guys, I really enjoyed talking to you today. This was an absolute blast. As we close out this podcast, though, I do want to give you guys a chance to say whatever you want to say. Plug what you're going to plug, promote at the end of the episode. So Danny and Scotty, the floor is yours.
Just right. you already said it. Check out Accabadora, streaming everywhere, and take a look at Poolside at the Flamingo.com. We got a lot of merch, windbreakers, shorts, hoodies, zip hoodies, and then we also have all our shows coming up listed there. So you're in like the South, Midwest, not South like Georgia, but we're heading down to Texas, through Oklahoma, back up through Arkansas and
Houston. We're going to going to Fayetteville, and so OKC. Come
out to a show.
Yeah, we'd love to see you guys, and just come rock with us. Come talk to us afterwards, and hopefully we'll be in a venue in your town or city soon too, so you can see us. So love you guys.
Well, everyone that's going out to those venues, go out to those venues and, spend your money on a good time so that these guys get more money to go play more shows and come up by me this time. Yay!
Yeah! Milwaukee!
Yeah, Milwaukee! And Gockwin for the good land, according to Mr. Alice Cooper. But now it's time for this podcast with three specific things. First things first, Accabadora, the brand new EP from Poolside At the Flamingo. Full thing is out on May 22nd. So the best way to make sure that you listen to the EP, listen to everything else they have out there, go check out their live shows, and go follow them online, is go to the description of the podcast below where it says find Poolside At the Flamingo online. Links, labels for everything, social media, YouTube, website, merch, music, streaming, buying, all that stuff is going to be in the description of the podcast below. I'm going to go all Google on this and be your own personal Google, so do not let me down. I'm doing this all for you guys. Now, step number 2. Well, Danny, Scotty, whenever I guest on the podcast, I join the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for taking the time, and I wish you continue to support the band in the future, and this was an absolute blast. And my promise to you guys is this. It's when I get to see you perform live for the first time, because I know it's going to be an absolute blast. And if by some miracle I am not completely beat the hell out of by the end of the show, I will come and find you guys. I'll say hi, but my promise is first round's on me.
All
awesome,
right,
Kevin.
I agree.
Yeah,
that
man.
sounds good.
All by the second round then.
That is lovely. Well, guys, thank you once again. As number 3 comes, I cannot end this podcast by saying goodbye. This was a hell of a lot of fun. I can't wait to see you guys play live, making that promise, and I would love to bring you guys back on this podcast again.
Nice.
This was fantastic. Goodbye is too final, so we're going to end it by saying, I'll see you later.
See you later, man.
Well, folks, that's my interview with Scotty and Danny from the band Poolside At the Flamingo. Now it's time for Kevin's final thoughts. So this was the first time I ever brought a grindcore band onto the podcast. I do want to thank Etter from Costa Nostra PR for constantly, saying, hey, do you want to do this one? You want to do this one? Once I said yes, and now after doing it, I'm super duper happy that she sent it my way. So thank you very much. This one was a lot of fun. And the main reason I really got behind this one was because you can see how this band has stuck to, what they love with the grindcore sound, with the manicness, the craziness, the consistent turns all over the place, but how the evolution of overall songwriting and overall technology to be able to songwrite and make their best live shows have changed over time and how they adapted to it. From the MySpace days, from where it was just throwing everything together, just having a blast with it, and just not really taking as much care to it, to a lot more of a consistent live show with click tracks, with some backing tracks if needed, to writing songs, to being more just intentional with them than more sporadic and more improvisational. Especially taking a look to the new EP, I really like what they did on some of these, due to the fact that it's just heavy, manic, hard. But if you listen to the last song in the EP, Hell on Earth, it has a very consistent, cohesive flow to it. So it is manic, it is crazy, and each crazy next step feels like it belongs, which is something I'm really happy to say. So I think they did a really good job on this one, and you should definitely go see them live if you have the chance. If you don't go see them live, you're missing out if you have the ability to. Me, they're not coming anywhere near me, but I wish they were. But go and see them play live. Go check out the new EP when it drops on May 22nd. If you want to follow along with the band, go to the podcast below where it says find Poolside At the Flamingo online. Links, labels for everything is going to be down there, so you can check out the new EP, check them out on tour, buy some merch, and enjoy their content online. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast right down here on YouTube. Hit follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. New episodes every single Tuesday and Thursday, and YouTube subscribers get a special Friday reaction video every single Friday. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Links to the podcast. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Scotty. This was a blast. Cannot wait to do this again. And remember, first time I see you guys play live, first round's on me. On that note, that's what you guys say for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. So I'm a big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!